Hello, my name is Jacob Mihok, and the article I'm presenting on is an article by Chuyin Wee Yap called American Tariffs on China Are Being Blunted by Trade Cheats. It emphasizes greatly on data from Vietnam that shows surges in both imports from China and exports to the U.S., highlighting the transshipment cheat process that is going on within Vietnam and other countries. Billions of dollars worth of China-made goods are subject to tariffs by the Trump administration. In its trade fight with Beijing, are dodging the China levies by entering the U.S. through other countries in Asia, most notably Vietnam. In the first 5 months this year, exports to Vietnam from China of electronics, computers, and machinery and other equipment have sharply increased compared to the last year. The Vietnamese Ministry of Industry and Trade said, "The phenomenon of trade fraud through labeling of the origins of goods as being produced in Vietnam is increasing. Such fraudulent labeling not only directly affects products and consumers, but also significantly reduces the reputation and competitiveness of goods manufactured in Vietnam." Here you can truly see how the amount of imports into Vietnam and Taiwan and exports going from these countries to the U.S. has significantly risen in the past year. Vietnam's imports from China has risen 81%, while exports from Vietnam to the U.S. has risen 72% in the past year. The practice of this not only disregards the tariffs set on China by the U.S., but has also affected Vietnamese business by significantly reducing the competitiveness and value of Vietnamese-based products. The Trump administration has for more than a year sought to weed out the practice known as transshipment, in which Chinese exports are typically are minimally processed or altered during a brief stop in a third port and then re-exported as a product originating from the third port. These tariffs that have already been placed on Chinese exports by the Trump administration are the leading cause as to why China is transshipping to countries like Taiwan and Vietnam. Such circumvention threatens to crimp U.S. plans as it prepares to add tariffs on to $300 billion of Chinese exports, from toys to electronics, essentially covering all its China trade. The U.S. has already placed 25% tariffs on some $200 billion of Chinese exports. The U.S. officials and industry analysts say Vietnam has for years played a pivotal role in importing Chinese steel, lightly treating it, and then re-exporting the product as a Vietnamese good, thereby giving Chinese steelmakers and Vietnamese processors a means to run the U.S. tariffs. Vietnam's custom agency said that this month that it instructed its provincial and municipal branches to step up inspection and verification to certificates of origin, a document that accompanies all international shipments. The regulator said companies, which it didn't identify, had been importing Chinese goods, replacing the labeling to say "Made in Vietnam," and then re-exporting the goods to the U.S., Europe, or Japan. Washington's campaign in recent years included slapping punitive duties in addition to the broad tariffs on Chinese origin goods from steel to furniture that the U.S. Commerce Department deemed have been transshipped. Emily Zeberg, a media official for the embassy, said the Department of Homeland Security has investigated and fined a number of companies for evading tariffs in the U.S. by routing goods through Cambodia. Vietnam, which has been benefited from the trade dispute between the U.S. and China, is vulnerable to losing some of its newfound business if the country is perceived as a transshipment center. Trade trends in Taiwan, a major tech exporter, have also drawn attention. The island's exports to the U.S. of servers, switches, routers, and other computer gear rose to 56.3% to $4.3 billion in the January-April period, nearly 3 times the broad export growth to the U.S. of 20%. Vietnam's exports of computers and electronics to the U.S. increased 71.6% in the first 5 months this year to $1.8 billion. More than 5 times the pace of its exports, such as products worldwide, in the same period. Its imports from China in category rose 80.8% to 5.1 billion, 4 times the pace of its worldwide figure. U.S. officials and industry analysts say Vietnam has for years played a pivotal role in importing Chinese steel, lightly treating it, and then re-exporting the product as a Vietnamese good, thereby giving Chinese steelmakers and Vietnamese processors a means to end-run the U.S. tariffs. Many buildings called factories are set up in Vietnam, which are really storage structures to hold goods being sent there, but are really made in China, said Jeffrey Newman, founder of Jeffrey Newman Law. In conclusion, you leave yourself with the question, how do you properly battle this ongoing problem all while maintaining stable economies in the U.S. and countries that are being affected by China's trade cheats? Thank you.